Toby Roberts won gold in the Olympics and really seemed to do quite well in both events, as you have to do as a gold medalist in both bouldering and sport climbing, whereas it looked like some of the other maybe old guard climbers were a little bit more specialized, a little bit more towards sport climbing, a little bit more towards bouldering, one or the other. I'm curious if there's anything that we can take away. Are the young guns, is the new guard coming up here showing us a different type of training or climbing style that's going to help them on both aspects, both bouldering and lead climbing, whereas others maybe are a little bit more specialized?
Yeah. So I felt like watching the Olympics this time this is going to be the last year where we see the elite pro level climbers who we typically associate with the very hardest bouldering and route climbing, sport climbing outdoors, also with being potentials for podium places in the Olympics. I think this is the last Olympics that we see that. And that when
Why is that?
because I think the degree of specialization that you have towards indoor climbing and the movement associated with it and the ability to be able to read the problems perfectly or very, very well and have the psychology which is developed for competition climbing and it being specialized enough for specifically that task of comp climbing needs or now is being served by people who have had 10, 15 years in that environment. And the youngest climbers that are coming through have spent the vast majority of their life in that environment and haven't been spreading that out to developing a psychology which is really great for red pointing or projecting burden of dreams, or at the same time as having 4 different 9B sport projects in different areas of the world and traveling around to them, finding partners, setting up filming, making sure sponsors are happy. It's a really different game. And I think that has now reached its conclusion where Ondra and Jakob, for example, in the men's are going to be competitive for those first place, all those podium places. I'm not saying that in 4 years' time we won't see those guys still competing and doing well, but I think they will be now placing like 10th plus, and they'll be competitive as such, but they're not going to be the gold medalists, and everything will be dominated by the youths who have come through that indoor climbing has been 95% of their bouldering or their climbing consumption.
And do you think that's also because the setting will continue to evolve and become more specialized for those who are coming up within that world? Or is it just that the youth who are coming up are going to be more specifically trained and skilled on plastic, to your point, compared to those who are splitting their time on a bunch of different types of objectives and trips?
Yes, I don't think it's too much of a training aspect, although there are some differences of training for outdoor projecting or on-siting, I suppose, potentially as well, versus indoor comp climbing, which is that kind of flash, climb something very fast, but not at the true physical limit. So there are differences with that, but the training, I think, can look very similar for the broadest part, and you can produce a very good athlete in both of those with the same sort of training. It's more, in my view, around the gaining that last 1% of advantage in the skill set that's developed specific to what you're trying to do.
All right, y'all, just a quick break here to ask you a question. Do you do a lot of lead climbing like I do? If the answer is yes, you need to check out the Neox, which is this new belay device by Petzl. I just tried this thing out at the gym. I love how it works. It was designed with lead climbers in mind, and I got to say, it works great. You can think of it basically as a gree-gree. So it looks and operates the same, but there is some magic engineering inside of this with this little wheel that spins, and it allows you to pay out slack quickly and smoothly when belaying somebody on lead. Like there's like zero friction, which makes it very low impact on the belayer. It does not hurt your shoulders to be belaying for a while, and very easy on the climber to clip draws and not worry about getting short roped. And because it's Petzl, you know it's the best of the best. You can find your Neox at your local gear shop, and just swing on over to petzl.com to learn more and access the inaccessible.
Let's say you take a moon boarder and they're like a V15, 16 moon boarder. That's all they've ever done, just climbed on a moon board all their life. And now you say, right, I want you to go out and climb the 5 hardest boulders in the world. And yeah, objectively, they might have quite a good chance on burden because it's very moonboard-like and the skill set has been developed for that. But there's going to be a whole number of areas where they just don't understand the subtlety of the rock, what it feels like to deal with the conditions, landings, which maybe aren't as reliable as you have when you're going to a gym and you've got, matting laid out in the same way. And it's exactly the same thing for indoor comp climbing versus those outdoor climbers, is that the skill set that they've developed over those years is so specific to competitions and reading comp boulders and communicating, talking to route setters. It's like it's their environment that they know it so well. So that's the thing that they're going to outperform the others because they haven't diversified and they've been totally focused on that one thing.
Yeah, but then when it does does the streak go both ways? So then if look at Toby Roberts, for example. I mean, obviously he's going to stay focused on, I would imagine, he'll stay focused on comp climbing for quite some time. But when he does shift his sights to outdoor climbing, will it be as hard for him to adapt to outdoor climbing as a predominant outdoor climber is to adapt to indoor climbing? Or do you feel the learning curve will be faster for comp kids, for lack of a better term, once they set their sights outdoors?
My gut sense says it's a little easier going from comp to outdoors because I think psychologically the outdoors is a little bit easier. But there is a fine line, and it's like almost like a tipping point in the balance where an individual has spent so many years in the comp scene dreaming of Olympic golds, hanging out with comp climbers, everything around their sort of social kudos, what matters to them, what really drives them is so based around this indoor competition thing that at some point when you say to them, hey, you could convert to outdoor here and climb some 9Cs, maybe you could climb 9C plus, maybe you could climb 10A, I think there's a good chance where they'll go, yeah, but it's not really what I'm driven for. Honestly, it just wasn't what I consumed for all those years. Right. Like in the same way that you could have a really old school climber that could come up to me and say, Tom, it's really great that you go and climb a load of these 514 cracks down the White Rim, but like there's something really good on Kanchenjunga or, like some 8,000 meter peak. And I'll go, yeah, I mean, I probably could climb something really hard on a big peak, but it doesn't interest me. It's not what I have dreamt about for the last 20 years. So yeah, I could theoretically, but it's not what drives me. So I'm not going to do it. And I think that will increasingly happen. That tipping point will move as people just engage with that specialization their entire lives. And us as, what we call ourselves as proper outdoor climbers will go, wow, they're just not even bothered about any of this outdoor stuff. So they won't achieve the very limits because they're not driven for it.